Good. You know, today I'm doing really great. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to this day for a while. I'm also really nervous. A TED Talk is kind of a big deal. I'm on a big stage. There are lights in my face. I'm in front of a lot of people. Yeah, my heart's racing just a little bit. So in my life, I'm trying to be more authentic. And one of the ways I'm doing that is by telling people how I really am. Now, you may be thinking, oh my gosh, authenticity is such a huge topic. What do you even mean by that? If you'll give me a few minutes, I'd like to break it down into bite-sized chunks for you. Authenticity is defined by psychologists with the University of Georgia as having the unobstructed operation of one's true or core self in one's daily enterprise. That's a mouthful. In simpler terms, it means living out your daily life exactly how you would do it. Not living it based on other people's expectations or societal standards, but on what you are truly and honestly motivated and driven to do. Psychologists Kernis and Goldman with the University of Georgia have broken it down into 4 core parts: awareness, unbiased processing, behavior, and relational orientation. Awareness is pretty self-explanatory. It means being aware of all parts of yourself, your motivations, your drives, your interests. Unbiased processing is being able to evaluate your strengths and your weaknesses without denial or blame. Behavior is acting exactly how you would act in any given social circumstance or matter. And lastly, relational orientation is revealing your true self in your daily relationships. One of the ways of doing that is by telling people how you really are. So, you may be wondering, Katharine, why is this even important enough to give a TED Talk over? That's a great question. Please let me tell you. Psychologists with the University of Missouri-Columbia did a study where they asked undergraduate students to rate their life satisfaction and their depression, stress, and anxiety. And then 6 months later, they retested those same students for the same criteria. And the results showed that overall, students with higher levels of authenticity had higher life satisfaction and lower depression, anxiety, and stress. And inversely, students with lower authenticity levels had lower life satisfaction and higher depression, anxiety, and stress. In this study, authentic living was correlated strongly with feeling good about how your life was going. I'd say that's pretty important. In another study done by psychologists with the University of Georgia, they studied people's authenticity, and they concluded that people who were living authentic were able to pursue goals meaningful to them. They weren't chasing after things other people had said were important. Instead, they knew what mattered to them, and they chased after it. They pursued it. In a similar study with the University of Columbia, researchers found that not only were people living authentically able to pursue goals meaningful to them, but they chased after them in the midst of unexpected or challenging circumstances. COVID-19 was a huge wake-up call for me because I was able to see what extracurriculars and activities I had that actually mattered, because during a challenging and unexpected circumstance, quarantine, I pursued those activities. I chased after them, and the ones that didn't matter to me, I let them go. And lastly, in a study with the psychologists with the University of Georgia, researchers found that people who were living authentically displayed high levels of self-efficacy, which is someone's confidence in their ability to do hard things, and they had higher levels of self-esteem. Living authentically is healthy for you. It creates a healthy lifestyle and a healthier person. It can increase your life satisfaction, your self-efficacy, and your self-esteem, and lower depression, anxiety, and stress. I'd say that's all pretty important. Okay, deep breath. How are we doing? Are we tracking with me? Yes? Good. Okay, let's move on. Now that we have an understanding of what authenticity is, I'd like to do a little test with you all so you can see how authentically you may be living your own life. This test is called the Experienced Authenticity Measure, widely used by psychologists. In it, it asks subjects to rate their life satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5 in 5 different social situations in their life. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to say, I'm not a psychologist. You're not test subjects. This isn't a real study. Please take the results from this with a grain of salt. If your results don't come out exactly as you've hoped, that's okay. You're all right. Okay. For our scale of life satisfaction, we will say that 1 is not very satisfied, 3 is in the middle, and 5 is very satisfied. Or as I have listed, low, medium, and high. Now, to give you an example so you kind of know what we're going to do, I will say that a social situation is being a sibling. I am a big sister. I have 2 younger brothers, and for me right now, I am not very satisfied in my role as a big sister. With how busy my life is, I'm not able to spend as much time with them as I wish I was able to. So I would say I'm at a 2. I'm not very satisfied in my role as a sibling. Okay, do you understand? All right, I'm going to go through 5 different social situations, and I'd like for you to think of how satisfied you are in that area of your life on a scale of 1 to 5. And please try to remember your numbers. First, student. Second, employee. If you're not currently employed, think of a time when you did work for pay. For example, maybe you get allowance for chores around the house. Third, friend. Fourth, child unto your parent or guardian. And fifth, romantic partner. If you're not currently involved in a romantic relationship right now, that is totally fine. Please sit tight while your neighbors analyze their love life. Okay. If you would, please think through the general trend of your numbers. Now, psychologists typically conclude that the more a subject's numbers vary, the less authentic they are living their life. Because, as we've discussed, life satisfaction and authenticity are strongly positively correlated. So if someone's life satisfaction is all over the place, their authenticity would also be all over the place. And inversely, if a subject's life satisfaction is high, then their authenticity will also be high. Okay, deep breath. If you just realized that you may not be living your life as authentically as you thought or hoped, that's okay. You aren't a bad human. I don't hate you for it. Your neighbor probably doesn't either. Being authentic is hard and tricky, and if you're not thinking about it, it's really easy to forget. But I will say there is hope. Psychologists with the University of Pennsylvania have come up with 5 helpful tools to help everyday people like you and I to practice authenticity and incorporate it into your daily lifestyle. Number 1, be aware of your goals, desires, and interests. As we've discussed, pursuing things that are meaningful to you is a key part of authentic living. And the only way to do that is if you know what they are. So know what motivates you, what pushes you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, and chase after it. Number 2, practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is defined by psychologists with the University of Rochester as being aware of your own internal state and feelings and emotions without denial, but with unconditional acceptance. This can be practiced through meditation or even journaling. Number 3, have low levels of verbal defensiveness. This means that when someone presents a clashing opinion to yours, instead of retaliating back in aggression, accepting what they say, asking questions, getting to know their side of the story, and realizing that even a person's different opinion deserves to be heard and has value. Number 4, have people in your life who support your pursuit of authenticity. We are social creatures by nature, and it is to our advantage to have people who support us in this endeavor. And lastly, number 5, the one I think most applicable to our generation. Present yourself authentically in person and online. A study done with the University of Georgia showed that students with the greatest overlap between their in-person self and online person self had higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and authenticity. I'm going to say that again. People with the greatest overlap between their in-person self and online person self had higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and authenticity. To sum up, authenticity is about being the real you, but it's a little more than that. It's about knowing yourself truly and honestly. It's about chasing after the things you're passionate about. It's about having people in your life who support you and who accept you as you unconditionally are. But I think my favorite definition of authenticity comes from the University of Oxford, and it defines it simply as a virtue of courage. And I think that's absolutely right. It takes courage to get to know yourself truly and unobstructedly. It takes courage to recognize that even others' clashing opinions deserve to be heard. It takes courage to accept your thoughts, feelings, and emotions without denial or blame. Today, I'd like to practice a little authenticity of my own by being a little courageous. I'd like to present a poem I wrote, featured on the idea of being real with those around you. In it, I present two different conversations. One conversation is one I think most of us have every day, one I have every day, at least once or twice. But the second conversation is a little different, because the dialogue between the two speakers is real. It's authentic. It's messy and courageous. And it's very special to my heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you two conversations. Hey, how are you? Good, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Oh, it's good to see you. It's good to see you too. Okay, well, see you around, I guess. Yeah, see you around. Hey, how are you? You know, I'm okay. My room is messy. I haven't showered in 3 days. My breath is smelly. I think I'm going to miss out on what's for me. My mom isn't speaking to me again. I'm not sleeping well. Nightmares wake me up with their creeping fingers. Clouded music haunts my steps. And if that sad rain cloud from the cartoons were real, it would be storming over my head right now. I think I'm seeing things again, because every time I look around me, I see people smiling and laughing without any tears or sorrows clouding their beautiful faces, when I know, on the inside they're weeping and screaming, pulling out their hair in deep anguish, ripping out roots with nasty tangles. I know they stayed up the night before eating ice cream and zebra cake, streaming Netflix, picking apart their bodies in bathroom mirrors, analyzing the way their voice sounds on a recording and hating their laugh and wanting to break up with their boyfriend, and they had a big fight with their dad and they're mad at him, but really, they just wanted a hug. And they're thinking, oh my God, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I'm worthless, how could anyone ever love me? And yet, when I see them, they smile. I think I'm seeing things again. I see all of these beautiful people with whirlwinds full of abuse, hatred, self-doubt, and depression, slowly rotting away at their insides, stealing joy, intimacy, and authenticity from their beautiful souls. And yet, they respond to intentional friendships with painted faces, manicured responses, cookie-cutter lives to fill programmed relationships. Smiling faces always, right? Turn that frown upside down. We don't want any trauma dumping here, and if you really must, do so in the privacy of your own home, or hire a person to listen to you. For God forbid you talk about it with another human who may desperately need to hear the words you have to say, just to know they're not alone in their pain. Today I'm doing okay. And thank you so much for asking. I'm really glad I was able to get all of that off my chest. Please know I want to hear how you are actually doing too. I care. I want the messy. I'm tired of putting on my mask, my stiff plastic smile, and only revealing the shiny highlights of my life. The stuff of living is messy and silly, and gosh, sometimes it really stinks. But as I've learned, just being real makes all of the smelly and back of the closet things much more bearable. And yet, despite all of this, when I ask you, I have a feeling you might answer just like them. So please, tell me, friend, how are you? How are you? Thank you.